Suleman Malik was a man everyone feared, respected, and whispered about, a self-made millionaire, a ruthless negotiator, a man who never bent, never cried, never begged, until today. Today, he stood in the cold corridor of the city's most advanced hospital, completely broken. Inside the ICU, his only child, his tiny son, Ayaan, lay pale, motionless, breathing through machines. Doctors had just delivered the words that crushed whatever strength he had left. He has only 1 hour to live. We're sorry. There's nothing more we can do? 1 hour 60 minutes. For a billionaire, time was usually something he controlled, bought, extended, but not this time. Suleman felt powerless for the first time in his life. He pressed a trembling hand to the glass window, watching his little boy fight for each breath. His expensive watch, his tailored suit, his empire, everything felt meaningless, and then, in that silence, a soft voice called from behind him. "Sir, is it true, Ayaan baby? Is he really?" Suleman turned sharply. It was Aliya, the maid who worked in his mansion, a quiet, modest young woman with worn shoes, a simple dupatta, and eyes full of sincerity. She was the last person he expected to see here. His voice cracked with frustration and pain. "Aliya, why are you here? The doctors can't save him. No one can." Aliya didn't step back. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes, with a courage Suleman had never seen in any boardroom. "Sir, Allah's healing doesn't depend on doctors." Before Suleman could stop her, she walked toward the ICU door. Her hands were shaking, but her heart was steady. Inside the ICU, the beeping machines filled the room. Ayyaan's tiny chest moved faintly. So faintly that it made Aliya's eyes fill instantly with tears. She sat beside the baby, placed her dupatta gently near him, and held his small hand with both of hers like a mother, comforting her child. Then, closing her eyes, she began to recite softly, her voice trembling but filled with soul. Every word felt like a warm breeze in that cold room. Outside, nurses slowed their steps. Doctors glanced through the glass. Even the machine's harsh alarms seemed to soften. As Aliya continued praying, something impossible began to happen. The heart monitor, which had been dropping steadily, climbed, 1 bar, another. Ayyaan's breathing strengthened. His color improved. His fingers curled tightly around Aliya's. Suleman, watching from the doorway, froze. His son, the child they said would only live 1 hour, was stabilizing. And the person sitting at his bedside wasn't a doctor. It was the maid he barely noticed in his own house. Aliya finished her prayer, tears running freely down her cheeks. Ayaan opened his eyes. Suleman clutched the doorframe, unable to breathe. For the first time in his life, he whispered, "Aliya, what did you just do?" Aliya didn't look at him. Her voice was soft, breaking. "Sir? This miracle happened because it had to. Because there is something you don't know. Something I've been hiding. Something I'm afraid to tell you." Suleman felt the ground shift beneath him. Aliya continued, trembling. "Ayyaan's condition today. It isn't an accident. I'm responsible." And with that, the miracle turned into a mystery, one that would shake Suleman's world far more than the doctor's announcement ever could. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and refuses to let you breathe. Aliya's words echoed in Suleman's ears. "Ayyaan's condition. I'm responsible." For a moment, he couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't think. This was the same Aliya who had just saved his son's life? And now she was saying she had caused the very danger that almost killed him. Suleman stepped slowly into the ICU. His polished shoes felt heavier than bricks. Ayaan lay peacefully, his heartbeat steady, a miracle still unfolding in front of them. Aliya stood beside the crib, her fingers twisting the edge of her dupatta, her eyes lowered in shame. Suleman's voice was low, controlled, but filled with fire. "Explain, now." Aliya swallowed hard. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she did not back away. "Sir, I didn't hurt Ayaan, I would never." "Then what did you do?" Suleman cut in sharply. Aliya looked at the baby, then back at Suleman. "I hid something from you. Something I should have told you long ago." Suleman felt a cold wave through his spine. "What did you hide?" Aliya's breath shook. "Ayaan was sick before today. And I knew. Suleman's fist tightened by his side. What? Aliya's tears finally fell. For days, he wasn't eating properly. He had a fever at night. He cried differently, like he was in pain. I sensed something was wrong. Suleman's face drained of color. And you didn't tell me? Aliya nodded slowly, guilt crushing her. I tried, sir. Many times. But you were always busy, meetings, calls, guests. Every time I came to speak, you waved your hand and said, Not now, Aliya. Suleman blinked, stunned. He remembered saying those very words, dismissing her as if whatever she had to say could not possibly matter. Aliya continued, voice breaking. I told the house nurse. She said it wasn't serious. I told the head maid. She said to give paracetamol, but I knew something wasn't right. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. I should have forced you to listen. I should have pushed harder. I should have, Suleman interrupted, his voice suddenly weak. Why didn't you? Hazen is everything to me. Aliya whispered, because I'm just a maid, sir. Those words hit him harder than any truth. She continued, voice shaking badly. I was afraid. Afraid you'd think I was overstepping. Afraid you'd fire me. Afraid you'd blame me. She wiped her face, trying to stay composed. Today, when his condition suddenly worsened, I realized my silence could cost him his life. That's why I ran here. Suleman stared at her, not with anger now, but with a shattering realization. His hands, his power, his money. None of it could protect his son if he himself wasn't present. Aliya looked at Hazen again and whispered, I'm responsible for not speaking loud enough. Not fighting hard enough. Not being brave enough. Then she looked directly into Suleman's eyes for the second time that day. But I promise you, I will not stay silent ever again. Not when it comes to him. Something in her tone, raw, truthful, maternal, pierced through the walls Suleman had built around himself. For the first time, he truly saw her, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as the woman who had been raising his son when he was too busy to notice. Before he could speak, the doctor rushed in, eyes wide with shock. Mr. Malik, you need to see this. Suleman turned sharply. The doctor pointed at the monitor. His condition isn't just stable. He's improving at a rate that's medically impossible. Aliya held her breath. The doctor continued, voice trembling. Whatever happened in this room, it wasn't normal. Suleman slowly looked at Aliya again, and deep down, a question began forming, a question he wasn't ready to ask. Who exactly is this girl, and what is she hiding? The doctor's words echoed in the room like thunder. Whatever happened in this room wasn't normal. Suleman felt a strange stillness spread through his chest. His son was breathing. His heart was strong. His skin had color again. But the miracle wasn't what shocked him the most. It was Aliya, the quiet girl who barely spoke above a whisper. The girl who always lowered her eyes. The girl who saved his son. And the same girl who said she was responsible. Suleman stepped closer to her, his voice low but trembling. Aliya, I need you to tell me everything. Aliya clenched her dupatta so tightly her knuckles turned white. I told you, sir. I kept quiet when I shouldn't have, that's all. But Suleman heard something in her tone, a hesitation, a crack in her voice, a truth struggling to escape. No, he said firmly. There's more, I can feel it. Aliya looked away quickly, blinking fast as if holding back a storm. The doctor, still examining the machines, spoke again. Mr. Malik, his recovery began the moment she entered the room. I was watching from outside, whatever she did. Triggered an immediate response. Aliya whispered sharply, Please, don't say it like that. Suleman turned to her. Why not? If you saved my son, I want to understand how. Aliya's shoulders trembled, because she knew. She knew exactly what she did. And she knew what she had been hiding for far too long. Suleman noticed her silence, her fear, and something old, deep, painful behind her eyes. He softened his tone for the first time. Aliya, I'm not angry, I just want the truth. Aliya slowly looked up at him, and when she did, he saw it. The grief. The guilt. The weight of something she had carried alone. She took a shaky breath. Sir, Hazen reminds me of someone? Suleman frowned. Who? Aliya's voice broke. My baby. The words hit the room like a blow. Suleman felt the air leave his lungs. Your baby? Aliya nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I had a son. Almost the same age Hazen is now. Suleman stared at her, stunned. Aliya's lips trembled as she continued. He died, sir. Suleman blinked, unable to process the sudden revelation. The girl who saved his son had lost her own. Aliya's tears fell faster now. It was sudden. One night he had trouble breathing. I kept praying, holding him, begging for help. But I had no money, no one to call, no hospital that would take us. Her voice cracked, raw with trauma. I lost him in my arms. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating, heartbreaking. Aliya pressed her hand to her chest, as if the memory still stabbed like a knife. When I saw Hazen struggling today, it felt like I was reliving that night. She wiped her eyes, though the tears kept coming. That's why I ran here. That's why I prayed the same way I prayed for my son? That's why? He responded. Her voice became a whisper, because I gave him the same desperate prayer I once gave my own child. Suleman felt something inside him crumble. He had never seen pain like this, not even in the business wars he had fought. He stepped closer, quietly, gently. Aliya, you should have told me. Aliya shook her head. I didn't want pity. I didn't want to lose my job. I just wanted to take care of Hazen, the way I couldn't take care of my own. Her voice broke completely. He feels like the son I lost. Suleman's breath caught. Every emotion, guilt, gratitude, shock, empathy, hit him at once. He had always kept a distance from her. He never asked about her life. He never wondered why her eyes always carried sadness. Now he understood. The maid he ignored had poured a mother's love into his child. Before Suleman could speak further, the doctor ran forward. Sir, look! Suleman's heart jumped. Hazen, who couldn't move just minutes ago, was lifting his hand toward Aliya, his first movement since collapsing. The doctor whispered, he's responding to her. And at that moment, Suleman realized something terrifying, beautiful, and unbelievable. Hazen wasn't alive today because of science. He was alive because of Aliya, because of her love, because of her loss, because of her prayer. But he also realized something else. Aliya hadn't told him everything yet. The way she had said, he feels like the son I lost. There was something more behind those words, something deeper, something she was still hiding. For a few seconds, the only sound in the room was the rhythmic beeping of the monitor, steady, strong, alive. Hazen's tiny hand stretched again, not toward the doctor, not toward his father, but unmistakably toward Aliya. Suleman felt that gesture like an arrow straight to his heart. The boy who had barely been breathing an hour ago was now reaching for the maid in a way he had never reached for anyone else. Not even the nurses who cared for him daily. Aliya froze when she saw the movement. Her lips trembled. Her eyes widened, filling with disbelief and something deeper, something maternal. She stepped forward on instinct, and Hazen's fingers curled instantly around hers. A soft, almost invisible smile spread across the baby's face. The doctor breathed out, stunned. He recognizes her. Deeply. Suleman felt a strange pressure building inside his chest. A realization he wasn't ready for, a fear he couldn't name. He moved closer, his voice softer than he intended. Aliya, why does he respond to you like this? Aliya didn't look at him. She was too focused on Hazen, gently touching his forehead, whispering prayers only she could understand. But Suleman saw it, the way she touched him. The way she held her breath with every movement he made. The way her tears fell with pure relief. It wasn't normal. It wasn't just a maid caring for an employer's child. It was something else. Suleman's heart hammered as the impossible thought, grew louder. He took a deep breath. Aliya, is there something else you haven't told me? Aliya stiffened. Her hand froze on Hazen's. The doctor sensed the tension and quietly stepped out of the room, closing the door behind him. Now it was just the three of them, Aliya, Suleman, and the child who connected them in a way. Suleman didn't yet understand. Aliya's voice was barely audible. Sir, please don't ask me that. Suleman stepped closer. I need to know the truth. Aliya slowly peeled her hand from Hazen's and stepped back, as if forcing distance between her heart and the child she clearly loved too much. Her eyes, red with tears, rose to meet Suleman's, and in that moment, he saw it, a fear so deep, a guilt so heavy, a truth so painful that it made his own breath stop. Aliya finally spoke, her voice shaking violently. "Sir, Hazen responds to me because—" She swallowed hard, her entire body trembling. "Because he's not just your son?" Suleman blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Aliya's tears spilled over. "He's mine too." The room spun. Suleman felt the world tilt, the ground vanish beneath him. "What? What are you talking about?" Aliya wrapped her arms around herself, crying silently, every word breaking her open. "Hazen is the child I lost, my baby, my blood." Suleman staggered back, gripping the edge of the crib. "That's impossible." Aliya shook her head desperately. "No, sir, it's the truth." Suleman's voice rose, trembling with shock and disbelief. "How can my son be your son?" Aliya sobbed harder, unable to stand still. Because now the truth she had carried alone, was exploding out of her. Because the child I buried 2 years ago was not my child. Suleman stared, horrified. Aliya finished in a whisper so fragile it shattered the silence. "Someone swapped the babies, sir, and the child you've been raising is actually mine." The world stopped. Hazen slept peacefully between them, the baby who tied their destinies together in a way neither of them ever imagined. And all Suleman could whisper was, "Then where is my son?" Suleman felt the blood drain from his face. His world, his identity, every truth he held close, all shattered in one impossible sentence. "The child you've been raising is actually mine." And then where is my son? Aliya clutched her dupatta to her chest, as if holding herself together. Her voice came out broken, trembling, barely human. "Sir!" "I searched for him, everywhere, every hospital, every record, every nurse who was on duty that night." Suleman's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." Aliya nodded slowly, because running was no longer possible, hiding was no longer allowed, and the truth had claws that demanded release. The night everything changed, Aliya wiped her cheeks, her eyes distant, staring into a past she wished she could erase. 2 years ago, I gave birth in a government hospital." Suleman inhaled sharply. He remembered that same night his wife, Shazia, had gone into labor early. Complications, panic, chaos. Aliya continued. "It was a crowded ward. Too many mothers, too few nurses, women crying, shouting, so much confusion." Her voice cracked. "I held my baby for only 10 minutes before he fell unconscious. They took him away. Said they needed to check him." Her hands shook as she spoke. "Hours later, they handed me a baby wrapped in a blue blanket and told me mine didn't make it." She squeezed her eyes shut. I believed them. Suleman felt a knife twist in his chest. Aliya's voice turned into a whisper, raw, hollow. "But that wasn't my son. The mistaken grave, I buried a child who wasn't mine, while my real son was being taken home by you." She stood there, shaking as if the shame and grief were suffocating her. Suleman's hands trembled violently. "How do you know this?" Aliya slowly reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small, crumpled card, an old hospital ID tag. "Hazen Malik, Birth Ward B, Infant ID number 4032, Mother, Unknown, Emergency Section." Aliya held another tag, torn, faded. "Infant ID number 4032, Temporary Mix-Up Record Nurse Signature." Missing. Suleman staggered. His knees nearly buckled. A mix-up, a missing signature, an emergency night full of chaos. 2 babies, one rich, one poor, swapped without anyone noticing. A tragedy disguised as routine paperwork. The motherly instinct she couldn't explain. Aliya wiped her tears, her voice steady for the first time. "Sir?" "From the first day I held Hazen, I felt something." She looked at the child with a love that could melt steel. He calmed when he heard my voice. He smiled at me before anyone else. He clung to me, just like my baby used to. Suleman swallowed hard. "And you never told me?" Aliya's voice broke again. "I tried. But how could I come to a millionaire and say, 'Sir, I think your child is actually mine?'" Her shoulders collapsed. "How could I, when I didn't even have proof?" Suleman breaks for the first time in his life. Suleman Malik felt completely, utterly helpless. His money couldn't fix this. His power couldn't reverse it. His pride couldn't save him. He grabbed the railing beside him to stay on his feet. His voice was barely audible. If Hazen is your son, then my real son. Where is he, Aliya? Aliya shook her head slowly, painfully. I don't know, sir. The words stabbed like a blade. She pressed a hand to the crib. But I swear on my buried child, I will help you find him, even if it takes my whole life. Suleman stared at her, the maid he overlooked, the girl he dismissed, the woman who had loved his child more than he ever understood. Then he said something he had never said to anyone. Aliya, I need you. Aliya froze. Suleman's voice cracked open completely. Not as a maid, not as an employee, but as the only person in this world I can trust right now. A tear fell down his cheek. We will find my son, and we will uncover who stole yours. Aliya nodded, her hands trembling. But neither of them noticed the shadow standing outside the ICU window. Watching them, listening, smiling, someone who knew exactly what happened 2 years ago. Someone who feared only one thing, Aliya telling the truth. I stood there, frozen. Aliya was on her knees, her hands still glowing faintly with warmth, as if her palms had kept the last breath of hope alive. Suleman's eyes were wide, trembling, unbelieving. And little Ayaan, the child doctors, had declared Gon was breathing softly in Aliya's arms. Not shallow breaths. Not forced breaths. Real, warm, rhythmic breathing. For a moment, the entire IQ forgot how to breathe. Even the machines seemed silent. Suleman took one step, then another. And then he broke. He dropped to his knees in front of her. Aliya, how did you do this? Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. Sir, I didn't do anything impossible. I only did what a mother would do, whether the child is her or not. Suleman pressed a shaking hand over his face. Years of power, pride, and pain cracked all at once. You gave him life. You gave me life again. Aliya shook her head gently. Allah gave him life. I just refused to accept that an hour was all he had. At that moment, Dr. Harris rushed into the room with 2 more specialists. They froze when they saw Ayaan's chest rising and falling naturally. This is medically impossible, Dr. Harris whispered. He had no activity, nothing. Suleman stood tall, holding his son close. I don't care what science says. My son is alive. And she saved him. The doctor tried to ask Aliya how she did it, what technique she used, whether she followed a medical protocol. But Aliya was only staring at Ayaan with tears rolling down her face. I just listened to his heartbeat, she whispered. Even when none of you could hear it. The world found out news broke within hours. The maid who restarted a heart. The miracle at Horizon Hospital. Millionaire's son returns. From the brink of death, crowds gathered outside the hospital. Cameras flashed. Everyone wanted to interview Aliya. Everyone wanted answers. But Aliya refused every request. It was not me, she kept saying. It was love. Suleman brought her home when Ayaan was finally discharged. Suleman did something no one expected. He opened the back door of his luxury car, not for himself, not for security, but for Aliya. Please, he said gently, you saved my family. Let me give you one. Aliya looked away. Sir, I'm just a maid. I don't belong in your world. Suleman stepped closer. You belong wherever your heart chooses to be, and I have never seen a heart stronger than yours. She lowered her gaze, overwhelmed. I don't know what you're asking. He smiled softly. Not asking, hoping. He pointed at Ayaan sleeping peacefully in her arms. Be part of our lives, not as staff, not as help, but as someone who gave my son back to me. Aliya's tears returned, this time from a place she had kept locked for years. A place where she had buried her dreams, a place that finally opened. I will stay, she whispered, if Allah wills it. I will stay. Months later, the mansion no longer echoed with silence. Ayaan laughed again. Aliya smiled again. And Suleman, once a broken man behind millions, finally felt whole. He watched them play in the garden, Ayaan running clumsily toward her, Aliya catching him with that same warmth that saved him. Suleman whispered under his breath, 1 hour. They said 1 hour. He turned his face to the sky. But Allah wrote a lifetime. Final line, and so, the millionaire who had everything but nothing found his entire world in the woman who refused to let time decide a childless fate.